While Superman is searching for Zod, someone else is stuck in the zone. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys, Page Puncher's Ghosts of Krypton, Earth-2, Superman. Haunted by the vision of a spectral General Zod seeking salvation, Superman embarks on a perilous journey into the Phantom Zone, where Kal-El discovers an army of deadly Brainiac drones. Superman soon learns that Val-Zod, the Superman from Earth-2, has also been lured to the zone by ghosts from the past. Although powerless in the Phantom Zone, the Men of Steel, donning protective Kryptonian armor suits, vow to vanquish Brainiac and the menacing mechanical army. If you're going to have to battle Brainiac in extraordinary numbers, you're going to need yourself a little bit of extra help. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the Page Puncher's Ghosts of Krypton, Val-Zod, Earth-2, Superman, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that we could have a look at this figure. The figure is going to be, yes, using the same body as Superman. You could really, though, justify the fact that they're both using Kryptonian armors, that the design would stay pretty similar with one another, other than really retooling a brand new head for Val-Zod and obviously giving him gripping hands instead of the punching fist that Superman would have. It is literally just the same figure. Because of that, he's also going to be standing the same at about 7.5 inches in height, or Val-Zod Superman is about 19 centimeters tall. Yes. As for that other Superman, sliding over now Val-Zod and introducing back in Kal-El. The thing, though, that was different about Kal-El's review was the fact he didn't actually start this way. No, in fact, that figure actually had armor all over his body that over the course of that video, I sort of stripped him down. Interesting thing about, though, Val-Zod is that while we're getting an unarmored version of him, so to speak, there is also, though, a Platinum Edition version of Earth-2 Superman that's going to have the armor. That does then ask the question, why wouldn't they have just killed two birds with one stone and not release one figure with removable armor? I didn't really do these in proper order. Why I say that, though, is when we did have a look at Superman, the issue of the included comic was Ghosts of Krypton 1 of 4. Unfortunately, though, choosing this badly, when we looked at Val-Zod, he's issue 3 of 4. So we're missing in the middle issue number 2. I would imagine it's probably going to be with one of the clones of Brainiac. As we look at that figure in the upcoming review, you'll see if issue 2 is the included comic. Flipping, though, through the comic while we're kind of left with a little bit of a cliffhanger, so to speak, we're sort of starting in the middle of a battle. Both Kal-El and Val-Zod, for that matter, are already armored up in their Kryptonian armor, battling the many hordes of Brainiac clones. We will be looking at the regular Brainiac in one of the reviews, but also, if I flip to this page right here, you'll also see there's just regular Brainiac there too. Brainiac's going to be using pretty much the same body as a clones, just with a Brainiac head. And like I said, we will be looking at that in an upcoming video too. I do like the artwork on the inside of this. I think they've done a nice enough job. And if I was choosing this correctly, there's another version of Brainiac. I'd love to get my hands on that one as well. The thing about it, though, is that, yeah, while I did choose perhaps the incorrect order of looking at these figures, we will be fixing that, of course, in the upcoming videos. What's rather interesting, though, about Val-Zod is the choice of card that they gave him. When we looked at Kal-El for that reason, when we looked at his card, you remember it basically was just a snapshot, a cutout from the front issue cover art. With, though, Val-Zod, what they've literally done is they've just taken that front issue and they've shrunk it down. Shrunk it so much down, in fact, that it still has the Superman title, still has DC logo of the top corner, and it even still has issue 3 of 4 in the other corner. You would think, though, again, like looking at the original issue, why wouldn't they have just maybe cut out this section of Val-Zod and had that be the trading card? Because it seems really strange that then Superman would be basically an up-close picture of his portrait, and that Val-Zod is just essentially just the issue comic shrunk down in size. By the way, though, on the back of the cards, other than really just this section at the top, so if I was to mask that off and cover off their real names, Val-Zod and Kal-El, the read-ups are going to be exactly the same. I would also imagine, based on that, if we're looking at Brainiacs in upcoming videos, that also their read-ups will be identical to one another. Just strange, really, that they chose this as the choice for card, and that Superman is an up-close picture of him. Anyways, let's move those off to the side. The figure has no other accessories whatsoever. Though when we, again, look at the Platinum Edition version of Val-Zod, he's going to have the armor. Other than really completionists and collectors that want to have different versions of them and still keeping them sealed on card, or keeping them sealed in clamshell case this time around, I can't imagine any other reason why someone would want to pick up more than one Val-Zod if you're planning to open him up. Because again, like if you're looking at the figure and then you're looking at Superman, both that are sporting Kryptonian armor, the armor is exactly the same. And the figures, because of that, are also exactly the same. To the extent of, if you look at Val-Zod and looking at the armor that he has on his body, if you flip it around to the back, remember we were undressing Superman's armor, get your mind out of the gutter, he had these little slots on the back of his body where essentially he had his skirting. I'm just going to bring back in the skirting that came included with that version of Superman. And I'm just going to put this over top just to prove a point. I want to show you guys what I'm talking about here. Because they're, yes, using the exact same body, you could then take the armor for Superman and you could put that on top of Val-Zod instead. So that includes not only the skirt, but for example, if you wanted to, all you'd really have to do is just pop the head off his body and then you would just add Superman's armor over top of that. Val-Zod, then when we do look at his suit, is very similar, in fact, actually, to Superman's. We're going to be comparing those two in the upcoming video. But yeah, it's just, again, using the exact same body. It's not a bad thing because, again, like if they can write it into a story as the sense that they are using Kryptonian designed armor, then it would make, obviously, sense that they're going to be using the exact same figure mold. What, as already mentioned, is different about the figures is that they're using different heads here for Val-Zod, and they're also now giving him gripping hands, whereas when we looked at Superman, Superman had the closed fists instead. Let's move Superman out of the way here for a second. One thing they also have done too is because the shield, the emblem that he has on the front of his chest is smooth. Nothing is sculpted here other than just the main piece here. It's easy for them to go in there and change the symbol and the color. Because again, when you're looking at Superman, Superman's symbol is very different. What we get here for Val-Zod is actually more closer to what we would get with, say, for example, Snyder's version of the Man of Steel. Very similar style of the House of L symbol. I actually do like Val-Zod's symbol a little bit more than Superman's. But again, like it's essentially just using the same piece over top, so it's very easy for them to go in and paint it. Speaking of things that they also did paint, unfortunately though, while giving him gripping hands is different here from Superman, all they've really done really is painted the triangle over top of it. This isn't separate from the rest of the hand, so they're just using probably a hand that they've used with other DC multiverse figures, and they've just painted the little triangle piece over top of it. Armor's going to be exactly the same. I know I kind of just glazed quickly over his head sculpt. I actually do really like the head sculpt for Val-Zod. The color's really nicely done here. Paint is really well done too. And again, like we don't really have a lot of Val-Zod Supermans to work with. I think for what we're getting here, it's a nice looking figure, if again, only overlooking the fact that it's using, yes, the same body. One thing that's also very different, or one thing that's different is the color, but what is the same is the fact that the cape attaches the exact same way. So it's basically just slotted on the sides here for his shoulders. And though while Superman would have had a slightly lighter kind of pinkish red cape, Val-Zod Superman actually does have a really nice white cape that's got a little bit of elastic stretch to it. It's a nice looking cape. Like, I really wasn't at all disappointed with the way they've handled the cape here for Superman. If anything, I would say, and even in his review, I said that, like, the color of the cape is maybe a little too light. I mean, you don't really have as much of that problem here with Val-Zod. They basically just gave him a white cape to match the white symbol that he has on the front of his chest. The white is also painted down below here, and where Superman would have had the little emblem here in yellow, they basically just painted that over in the blue to match the rest of his suit. For again, like using the same mold, the suit is nicely designed here. There obviously is a little bit of absence of paint. I mean, obviously they're really what they've only done is molded this, I'm guessing, in just this coloring alone. It doesn't look like, I mean, there are a few little areas where you can look at the shoulders, for example, and it almost looks as if they're using a darker plastic. But then the idea of painting over all that in blue, I would imagine it'd be just so much easier for them just to mold this all in the blue plastic that they're using right now. And maybe, if anything, just painting some of the areas a little bit in a darker wash. But there's really very little in the way of paint in this guy, other than really just his emblem, his belt, and then down below here, he also has one other thing that Superman never had. He had the same mold, sure, but he also has this additional sort of Y shape painted in white, where Superman's would have only been done in the blue. Funny though, looking at the two figures, Superman has a little more of a sheen to his suit, where when you're looking at Val-Zod, for example, his is a little bit more of a matte finish. It seems more like a baby blue, whereas Superman's was clearly more of a darker blue. You would think, though, really, other than their emblems, that the suits would remain about the same color, but Val-Zod's clearly is a more lighter color of blue to Superman's. Of course, obviously, using the same body, they're going to be utilizing the same level of articulation. So Val-Zod's Superman's going to have a ball joint. Once again, it's going to allow the figure's head to rotate all the way around, to look up this high, look down that low, and you can also move it back and forth. I don't know if I may have even mentioned this when we looked at Superman, because they're also using a dumbbell ball joint, which essentially is a post, and then there's a ball joint here, and there's a ball joint here. It allows for more additional articulation that you wouldn't be normally able to get from just a post alone. So it does look down quite a bit more, just because, again, there would be a ball joint right here as well. You just can't see it because the neck's in the way of things. As for his arms, now I did notice, though, with the arms of Val-Zod, that this one arm is super tight. And every single time I've tried to move it, it ultimately just pops the shoulder out of the socket. So I always have to pop it back into place. It is a little cumbersome. It's a little bit more awkward. I don't know why specifically this side, it always has the shoulder popping out. I don't know if maybe there's just a buildup of pain. I mean, I think by now, all the movements that I've done for the figure should really pop that, should keep the arms in place. But this arm moves out fine. It's every single time I move this arm that it gets a little bit more hung up. The arm, though, rotates all the way around. Figure does have a swivel in his bicep, a double hinge on his elbow, and the hands, again, rotate all the way around. You know, I do wish that Superman could have had gripping hands instead of the closed fist that they would have given him instead. Upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. Lower torso, once again, is going to be on a ball joint. Legs split out. They're on ratcheted joints. You can take the legs and move forward. You can move them back. Again, you can split them out. So a bit of a swivel there at the top of the thigh, more the way it's been assembled. Double hinge on the knee, which is a little bit loose, unfortunately, here for Val-Zod, but it does have a double hinge. And then, of course, for the figure's feet, we didn't really spend a whole lot of time talking about his feet. I don't know if they've used these feet before. I mean, obviously, if they haven't already, these feet would be fantastic. If you were to be a customizer, wanted to design, say, for example, a Judge Dredd in the DC Multiverse style, I mean, those would be ideal feet, ideal footwear if you want to make yourself a Judge Dredd, or even like a Lobo, which I know we've already gotten ourselves a Lobo. Just sick-looking feet. Obviously, on the bottoms of his feet, he does have pegals, so if you wanted to make use of the display stand, it's certainly there. But the figure does have an ankle rocker. It moves up and down. It does have the toe articulation. The only other thing I would say about these figures is something about their feet. It just seems like the feet are either, it's kind of hard to put them in a middle range. You either bend them this far forward, or you kind of just get them about, I mean, there's clearly a ratcheted joint, but I noticed just getting the guys to stand, both him and Kal-El. Sometimes I get them to stand and they're okay. Other times, I try to put them down and their feet kind of cause the figures to fall forward. Again, bringing back in Superman. We are going to be looking at a Platinum Edition version of Earth-2 Superman, which I would imagine, even though he's got the mask on, he's got all the armor, I mean, taking that off, and obviously taking the cues from Kal-El, we know that the armor is going to be removable. But it does, again, beg the question, if we've only got one version of Superman from the Ghosts of Krypton, and that Superman obviously had the armor that's removable, why wouldn't they have also taken that same page in a similar way that they took the page from using the exact same mold? Why wouldn't they have just released Kal-El in one version, or Val-Zod in one version, where just the armor was removable? Instead, we get two versions of Val-Zod in this wave. One unarmored, so to speak, as you're certainly seeing here right now, and then one that is armored up. Either have done the same with Superman, or, like Superman, take a page from that and just not release the figure once with the idea in mind that obviously you could remove the armor and choose for yourself how you want to have the figure displayed. I think this might actually be the first review where I forgot to mention that the figure comes included with a display stand, as you probably can currently see here rotating on the rotisserie. Would I recommend Val-Zod released here from the Ghost of Krypton? I would certainly probably throw that back to you by asking, how do you plan on collecting them? If you are a mint in clamshell collector, where you have no plans at all to ever open up the figure, then I would say yes. Get this one and then get obviously the Platinum Edition that's going to have more the heavily armored version of Val-Zod. If you're planning, though, to open him, I would probably say pass on honestly getting this one in favor of the Platinum Edition instead. Unless there's an off chance they throw us a curveball and that the head sculpt underneath the breathing mask that he has in the Platinum Edition is completely different than the one we're getting right now. I would probably still say get only just the armored version of him if you're looking to display him loose. Because, I mean, after all, again, like that we did with Superman, you can choose either to have the figure displayed on the shelf with all the Kryptonian armor on his body, or like we ended up doing with Superman, you can just take the armor all off. It's still a nice looking figure, whether you decide to get both this one and the Platinum Edition, or again, if you just choose to get this one, I don't think you'll be disappointed, as we really don't have a lot of Val-Zod figures so far from the DC Multiverse line. Big thank you once again to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new Ghosts of Krypton Page Punchers Earth-2 Val-Zod Superman. I don't know how I'm going to get that all in the title. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys had the chance already to start collecting the Ghosts of Krypton, and which figures do you have so far? We will be still, by the way, continuing this. We'll start going to be looking at the armored version of Val-Zod. We're also going to be looking at not only one of the clones or one of the drones of Brainiac, but we're also going to be looking at Brainiac himself. So there's tons of videos still coming your way. The key to making sure, of course, you're not missing out on any of this is if you certainly did enjoy this video, well, do it a solid, throw it a like. But if you want to stick around for more, you want to still see the remaining reviews of the Ghosts of Krypton Krypton figure line from the Page Punchers and McFarlane Toys, then yes, hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.